Okay, I think we have people in here now.
I think we're good, Co-Chair.
Chief of Staff Bunn, are we good?
No, give me 1 second. I'm trying to do the YouTube. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Co-Chair Blair, you have a request in the chat from Task Force member Nisha Petruni. Just for context, I think Nisha's map is probably the first one that pops up in my search. So that probably is easy to accommodate her request.
Oh, looks fine with me.
We are live. We are live streaming. The meeting is being recorded, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Bunn, and thank you to all of the staff of Councilmember Gray. You've been phenomenal, and I would hate to think of going through this process without you. I want to welcome everyone to the Roundtable working session for Ward 7 ANCs and the task force. So we're going to start with just introduction, so you'll know who's on in case you are listening by phone. We know you can't see the faces, and we're going to ask them to state their name and what area they represent, what ANC. Let me start with Mr. Commissioner Leaney.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Leaney, former Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner for 7D07, Paradise and Parkside. I'm representing 7D on this task force, and I'll also be helping out with maps and screen sharing and all that good stuff tonight. Oh, and timekeeping. So if you get beeped or interrupted, it'll probably be me.
Thank you, Commissioner Leaney. I'm just going to go left to right as we are on the screen. My co-chair is next to me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joel Castone, representing 7F07. We here, ready to work. I will popcorn it to, if you want me to popcorn, you want to take it by co-chair?
Just on screen, whoever's next to him.
I see Dr. Dean right beside me.
There you go. We're just going to go down the line.
Good evening, I'm Merla Dean. I'm representing ANC 7B. Glad to be with you this evening. And next to me is Keith.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Keith Santari. I'm the chair of the Marsh Heights Civic Association and also the Fletcher Johnson Task Force. Happy to be here. I can't popcorn it to tell you who next to me, but if one of you are so gracious to say who's next to me, where that next person go, I would really appreciate that.
Max Richmond, 7C, Deanwood resident.
Now, Matt, you need to tell us you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Priest. I'm from 7D.
Eric Rogers, 7B, and I see Travis next to me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Travis Swanson, pronouns he, him, and I'm representing ANC 7B. And next to me is Mandela, Mr. Deskins.
I'm glad you got me here. I was like, I'm gonna have to remember who already went. I'm Mandela Deskins. I am representing 7C, specifically the Capitol View community. And I will pass it to Wendell. Did you go already? All right, I'm gonna pass it to Mr. Wendell Felder.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wendell Felder, and I'm representing ANC Commission 7D, and I will pass it over to Mr. Francis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francis Campbell. I am a resident and former commissioner for the area known as 6B10, or at least adjacent to DC General Hospital. And I will hang as long as I can. I'm sorry, I'm breaking off with a major headache this evening, but I will hang as long as I possibly can. Next to me is Ms. Blair. You're next to me on my screen. Commissioner Blair, you're next to me.
Okay, I'll go next because I didn't finish my introduction. I'm co-chair Tamara Blair. I represent 7D, specifically single member district 701. And I will start just by informing you that I will have to jump off here at some point to attend another meeting. So it's not like I'm running out on you, but just triple booked today. Next to me, they've already gone. So are we missing, let's see, who hasn't gone yet? Oh, my friend, my neighbor next door in 6A.
Everybody, it's Brian Alcorn. I'm representing ANC 6A. I'm also current commissioner for ANC 6A 08, representing the east end of Capitol Hill, newly joined parts of Ward 7 north of East Capitol Street, and sometimes part of the Kingman Park neighborhood, sometimes part of the east end of Capitol Hill. Good to see everybody. I do not have anybody adjacent to me who has not gone, so I will pass the floor to somebody else.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ashley Ruff. I'm representing Ward 7F and also acting president for Fort Dupont Civic Association. Happy to serve.
Hi, everyone. Nisha Petrini here, representing Kingman Park in 7D, and also Vice President of Friends of Kingman Park Civic Association.
Thank you, Nisha. Do we have anyone else? Any other task force members who have not introduced themselves? All right, 7C.
My name is.
Good afternoon. My name is Caprice Cason, and I'm representing 7E.
Thank you. Patricia, I think you can safely go next, and then we may be finished at that point.
Awesome. I was trying to go last. That was my goal. My name is Patricia Stamper. I'm representing an Advisory Neighborhood Commission 7C, specifically the Deanwood community.
Thank you.
I'm Tamika. I'm representing 7F, Bowden.
Thank you. I believe that concludes all of our task members that are present for this evening. Just to let the public know how this is working this evening, the task force members have a decision sheet. I got to say that slowly. This decision sheet that we are working from to evaluate the maps that we're going to review as they are compared to the principles of redistricting for ANCs and SMDs. By the end of the session, we will have 3 categories of maps. We will either have whole maps that will proceed further, or we will have partial maps that will need to be reconciled for consideration. And then we will have a category of maps that the task force has decided to decline. And at the end of each panel, we will do a voice vote for which maps are going where, so that the public will know how their representative voted on a specific map. And then we will go into the second panel after that. So Commissioner Laney, you're in the pilot seat tonight. We're going to bring maps up one at a time. And if the map creator is present, we will call upon the map creator to respond to some questions from the co-chairs. They will have 1 minute to explain, what their reasoning is for how they've drawn their map. And the co-chairs will ask a sequence of questions. And then after that, we will open the floor to the task force members to ask questions that are specifically related to the principles. So we're trying to focus on the principles, which are the basic building blocks for our redistricting for ANCs and SMDs. So Commissioner Laney has brought up the first map. Commissioner Laney, can you tell us the title of this map and who did it? And if they are here, we want to bring them to the forefront.
Certainly. One note, I'm going to run a timer. When the timer runs out, this is the sound you'll hear. The first map we have is called Ward 7 Task Force 5 SMD option. Nisha Petruni is the author. Nisha, if you're ready.
Sure, and I apologize in advance. My dogs chose this exact moment to start playing, and so I'm hoping they don't make background noise. So my objective with this map was to just see if it was possible to create a larger number of commissions and with a smaller number of individual SMDs. So that's what I was trying to just experiment with and see visually. So this includes 9 commissions that have about 5 MDs each. And so this creates 4 new commissions. So you'll see now that there's a 7A and then a 7 G, H, and I included here. I will preface and say that not all of the numbers work out because there would still need to be some adjustments to get all of the numbers in that 1900 to 2000 range. Again, I wanted to see if I could at least the principles of redistricting with compact and contiguous commissions and looking at the communities of interest and the different neighborhood and civic association borders. So this map is by no means perfect. I was really just trying to see visually if it was even possible. So right now this is proposing 9 total commissions and each of them has 5 MDs.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer specifics. That was the general.
Yes, I have a couple of questions there specifically related to the principles of redistricting that we will go through before we turn it over to the task force members. I'm particularly interested in how this map upholds to the principle of compact and contiguous for the SMDs. In terms of compact and contiguous, a person needs to be able to travel their entire SMD without leaving it.
Yeah, so I was, oh, sorry, Commissioner Blair.
Go ahead.
So I was trying to achieve that, and I think for the most part, I did, except for certain SMDs where we would probably have to adjust. I should have also mentioned, this doesn't adjust any specific boundaries. I wanted to be able to take into account the specific feedback from our different task force members that were, particular to their grant commissions. So this still shows what the lines look like currently. Again, it was just broadly trying to see if we could keep compact and contiguous commissions, even if we had a smaller number of SMDs. So I tried to, I think I achieved that, but we would have to shift some of the boundary lines and make sure that they would remain compact and contiguous. I think the one exception might be that right now River Terrace is included as part of 7G, again, so that there was at least 4 commissions in that yellow section on the map. but I think we're still debating how we're considering the river as a dividing line from the context of, is it a natural boundary that that would then be an obstacle in that with it being contiguous.
Thank you for that. As we're going through this, I will definitely not ask a question of every principle. However, our task force members will be responsible for viewing the map and deciding whether they meet all of the principles, some of the principles, and that's why we're going to give our task force members time to hone in and ask specific questions or look at the map in a little bit more detail. So thank you, Nisha Petruni from 7D for that. But I have one more question, or one more, actually a couple more questions. One is related to the ANCs as they are on your map. How does your map uphold the principle of preserving communities of interest?
So again, I was looking at the overlay of the civic association boundaries and the neighborhood boundaries. And I think that I tried to do that, but again, I'm not sure how successful it would be. So I'm very open to feedback from particular ANCs if it seems like that was not successful and what we would have to adjust. Again, I think maybe one area that might be challenging is in the Deanwood area, because that neighborhood has a larger geographical footprint. I don't know if we could still have an entire commission as requested if we're trying to have smaller commissions with only 5 SMDs. So that would be a challenge for some of the neighborhoods that are spread across larger geographical footprints. But I was looking at the Civic Association and neighborhood boundaries, again, to see if it was possible within the structure of how this ANC and SMD numbers, how they fall out.
Okay, next question has to do with other considerations that the redistricting subcommittee used in making decisions about the wards, and it is still applicable because what they were trying to do is to maintain existing ward boundaries to avoid making radical changes that are unnecessary given the political and social volatility of the pandemic that we're in. So can you address that in terms of what you did with boundaries and how dramatic or how drastic of a change you made to existing boundaries?
So like I mentioned, this actually is still using the existing boundaries that exist today. What I was really doing was shifting how SMDs were assigned to commissions to figure out if we could still maintain a structure that had a larger number of commissions but a smaller number of SMDs. But I do acknowledge that that in itself is a radical change to create 4 new commissions. And I'm not proposing this as a positive or negative, but again, more so having it, I wanted to include the map as an option so that we could talk about some of the costs and benefits with, which I think one of the attendees, Allison Horn, pointed out that, creating a substantial number of new commissions is maybe not something that would be feasible within the budget. So I think that's a good point to consider as we think through other maps and from my map in particular as well. So I take that as a fair point of feedback.
Co-chair,
yes, thank you.
We have 2 questions, one from Marla Dean and one from Keith Towery.
Okay,
we're over 3 minutes on the question session, just as an FYI. Okay,
we're going to roll into, at this point, Nisha Petruni is still with us. We're going to yield the floor to task force members to ask questions specifically about the map and how it relates to the principles of redistricting. So,
and I'm also happy to answer questions in the chat if we reach a time limit point, but go ahead.
Dr. Dean?
Dr. Dean, I think you were first.
Thank you. Nisha, I have a question. Could you provide an example of where someone would not be able to drive their entire, I'm looking at the map and I don't see that. So, but Granted, this map is small on my computer. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are some like little corridors of like 7C that creep into 7D. There are also some aspects of, again, newly labeled now 7A, which I think was originally part of 7F that creep into 7D. So just because of how the boundaries are, depending on how strictly we're interpreting contiguous, I think there are still areas where technically you have some commissions bleeding slightly into other commissions, but hopefully it's not too much of a impediment.
Okay, that's why I wanted to understand, because to me, if you can drive the ward without, I mean, your commission without going into another commission, it may not be a straight line, but you can do it. To me, that's contiguous. So I'm just was wondering what the definition we're working with on that. And then Commissioner Belair, you added a condition around COVID. Could you please explain to me what COVID has to do with this particular discussion?
That is nothing that I added. That is what the subcommittee included as other conditions. They are not legal requirements, but that is something that the subcommittee took into consideration. And they're saying that the council hasn't decided how to apply that, but the ANCs may take that into consideration, that the intention of trying to be minimal in terms of changing boundaries. I didn't add it, it's not my addition.
Okay, because since we're coming out of all the restrictions around COVID for the most part, I just wanted to be clear why that was prescient at this point, and found other principles much more important. So that's why I just needed clarity. Thank you.
Okay, we would have to see clarity from the subcommittee on that question.
Commissioner, wasn't that in context of not creating too much change in neighborhoods given the stress in the pandemic?
Yeah,
that's really kind of what the logic is.
We are definitely still in a pandemic. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's still around. So yeah, that's something they added. When it's going to not be considered, that's not a decision that I can make, but that is something that they wrote in, and that is something they included in the package that they sent to all the ANCs and SMDs, or ANCs regarding redistricting for ANCs and SMDs.
Hey, Co-Chair, we've been on questions for 6 minutes. We still have one hand up from Keith.
Hey.
Towery, is it? 77?
Yeah.
Okay.
Opportunity. I'm still trying to, sorry, I apologize in advance. Get home so I can do for a while before question is pertaining to so I hate to mention something, but I have a question that I definitely was trying to get folks' attention for a while before this started. And my question was just to verify that this isn't the only opportunity for the public or other people to submit maps, correct? We still have some more time in addition.
No,
correct?
mapping time is, maps are still open until the 19th to submit maps. I believe it's the 19th, we said at 6 o'clock. I'd have to check my notes. But we need to get the maps in for the viewing session that's coming up next week.
Okay. That's what I just wanted to just verify, make sure other people hear, because I did get a text message or two asking was this the final time, because I don't think.
No, this is not final. We set a deadline of the 19th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I believe we are done on this map for now.
Justin, could I get like 30 seconds to address, while you're pulling up the next one, to address the question?
Sure.
Okay. And if I don't finish, you can cut me off. Just to address a question that came up about why commissions with S&Ds. Again, this just to show an option. So I think the feedback in the chat has been valuable, and maybe this is a good example to see having 9 commissions with 5 SMDs each is maybe too much of an extreme to one side. So now we can consider if I do little, then is closer to 7 or our current structure, or whatever depends on the specific community needs. If they're larger community boundaries, that we need to be a little bit more flexible. But there were just some operational considerations that were brought up around really lengthy ANC meetings, not having enough room on an agenda or time for community member feedback, and that sometimes that is magnified with larger commissions, or that problem could potentially be resolved with smaller commissions. So those were some of the points that were considered that might also be relevant for other maps that we review. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leany.
The new map has been put up. It is called ANC 7B and 7G. The author is only listed as Ward 7 resident. So whoever that is, if they're here.
If Ward 7 resident is present, we would like you to raise your hand or otherwise get our attention so we'll know that you're here.
There is a short description in the info for that file. It says SMD proposal maps for 7B and 7G. 7G has one census tract which would be split near the jail, and 7B has a census tract that could also be split to include Park Drive and 7B02 rather than 7B03.
Okay, since the author or the creator doesn't seem to have gotten our attention at this point, we can still review the map. We can just rely on the task force members if they want to zoom in on a specific area, make notes of what they have observed regarding the principles of redistricting, and they want to request Commissioner Leany to go in one direction or another. Now is the time. I see one hand from Eric Rogers.
Can I go? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I will note that this map is trying to solve one problem, but it's creating another problem or maintaining a problem, depending on your perspective. It eliminates Fort Dupont from 7B and extends or maintains the lower part of 7B01, extending it further into or maintaining it in its current capacity. So that's the big change that I see in this map.
Any other task force members want to go in a different
Force
direction?
member Lee Wilson has his hand raised.
Lee Wilson, you have the floor.
So my question regarding this map is, so this map is only representing 3 ANCs? Am I looking at that correctly?
That's correct. So what I would suggest, if you want to approve this map, you would say partial, because it only applies to 2 parts of the ward.
That's correct. You can absolutely approve it as a partial and ask for it to be reconciled to make it more acceptable. So that's an option.
I'd really like to hear from the author of it. I'm trying to get some rationale as to why they drew it the way they did, but I'll wait. Thank you.
Commissioner, we're pretty close to about a minute. Not that we have a presentation. I don't know if you want to handle questions since the author can't respond to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to answer for the author if they are not here, but if there is something that you find acceptable that you think is worthy of trying to get more detailed information or to further build out the map, you have, again, that option to accept it as a partial map. I see hands still up relative to this map. I assume Commissioner Alcorn?
Sure, just a general question. So the proposition here is that some map makers have chosen just to focus on certain parts of Ward 7 and leave other parts of Ward 7 unmapped, in the sense that the map makers understand the parts of Ward 7 that they are mapping and then leaving unmapped the parts of Ward 7 that they're either not familiar with or choosing not to take a position on. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Swanson.
Thank you. I just, this one for looking at the 7G, it looks like they're calling it. So it looks like this would be creating a new commission completely west of the river. And then looking at the 7B portion, I was wondering if it would be possible to please zoom in at the top of the 7B01. I'm just kind of curious if that's extending north or if it's at its current boundary. Okay, it looks like that is at its current
Street or Crawford.
Yeah, that's where the current boundary is for 7B01. Yeah, I agree. This one looks like it keeps most of 7B's current boundary in place in terms of the commission, but I agree with Eric that right now it kind of follows the Dupont Drive, Fort Dupont Drive. So a little like about half of the park is currently in 7B. So, I mean, I feel like if we were going to move this one, I feel like it would make sense if the idea is keep the boundary near where it is now, that it would make sense to keep half of the park in 7B also.
Thank you.
But that wouldn't impact populations, I would say, because that's just the park. So that's a population 0. Right, thank you.
We're at time on our questions for this map.
That's it for this map. Thank you.
No problem. Jan, the next one, well, that's Tyrell Holcomb's map we talked about last time. Next to are my maps, which we talked about, Robert Coomber's map, which we talked about. The next one is, well, that's a practice map, so that's probably okay. Not Ward 7. Like we're wandering into, okay. This map is from Francis Campbell. I think we may have talked about this one previously, but not at this phase.
Yes, Brian, that's mine.
All right, I'm going to load it up, and also I could load up your Google map too, if you'd like to view that.
Yes.
This map is called 7A latest updated map.
Glad you're here, Commissioner Campbell. Welcome. We're going to let you lead off by telling us a little bit, like a minute, about what your map is and why it is.
Sorry, hold on one quick second. Justin, could you put the Google Docs in there? I had to go on kid pickup, so I was on my phone.
Sure.
But once you go onto your computer, you don't get all the chat stuff. Could you put all the evaluation sheets, et cetera, in there? In the chat again?
I'm gonna post that in the panelist chat.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A minute when you're ready.
Ready when you are. You got the timer going?
Yep, we are good to go.
Okay.
This was a proposal of the basically the area that is annexed into, well, that is now was captured with the RAS redistricting. So what everyone refers to as the Hill East area set with former 6B, 09, 10, 7A, 08, and 7, and the Kingman Park, Rosedale area. And so basically what I proposed to do was, and you can't see it on this particular map, was to separate the jail out as its own single member district going down Massachusetts Avenue. So I don't know if I can blow this up, but if you can see my cursor, it basically goes down straight down Massachusetts Avenue proposed, that's not built yet, and extends and incorporates the jail and makes it its own single member district. And the rest of Reservation 13, which is listed here, would become part of the 7A03. And that 2386 number is the information we got last from OP. It was the jail population that's Tubman Shelter, C. Sosa, and 29 unknown residents of that area. So again, it's an area that we have no control of as far as population, which is why that number exceeds the 2100 limit. But the rest of the map allows, as with the area that was, because the new Ward 7, it is a sufficient enough population to sustain a ANC of 7 SMDs.
My
We're
screen
at
is blank.
time.
I'm sorry. My
And the
screen
screen
went
is
blank.
blank right now.
Oh, sorry, Zoom being ornery.
So why are you doing that? I mean, I did not go into any
Is
other
it working
section
now?
across the river. Yes, I didn't go into any section across the river simply because I'm not familiar with what's on the other side of the river and the other SMDs. So having been a former commissioner for 12 years here in the Chair of Planning and Zoning, I'm intimately aware of the issues that are in this neighborhood. Is contiguous map of the areas that encompass everything west of the river. And we have a long history of working hand in hand with issues that border the old borders of 6A and 6B. I'm open to any questions people may have.
Commissioner Campbell, your map, compact and contiguous is a particular interest as a principle of redistricting. This is your rendition of what it could look like. Do you see that you have met that principle pretty fairly?
I believe I have, because all the land mass is contiguous. There's on the area that you see as part of 7A03, that area was previously 6B10, my former SMD, and the jail was 6B11, which was non-voting at the time. And so all that area, which comprises the former DC General campus, was historically in Ward 6 at the time, which was now what I proposed the new Ward 7 area. So it is contiguous to the Kingman Park area, Rosedale area, which one time was in Ward 6. And then it also comprises and combines 6A, the former 6B09, 6B10, 6A08, and 6A07. And the area, like I said, again, of Kingman Park and Rosedale. And if you look at the other maps around the city, the adjacent parkland area, although it has no residents, is incorporated into the adjacent residential area for former SMDs, which is again the other justification for the DC General property and the RFK property. Again, for purposes of us, it's part of the SMD, but it is owned by National Park Service, so we really the city has no jurisdiction over that land. But for the sake of doing it, and I'm happy to be contradicted if anyone has something contrary to that. As of right now, it is under the purview of National Park Service, which is basically 189 acres that shows up in the maps.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. I have one last question before I turn it over to the task force. Regarding civic association boundaries, how does the civic association boundary on the west shore of the river align with your proposed ANC boundaries?
Historically, the active areas of Kingman Park, Rosedale have civic associations that don't exist on the other side of East Capitol Street. We have a continuous and contiguous neighborhood that, if there are issues, it has a greater than 80% involvement in political issues and voting. The area of Kingman Park has a strong civic and community association, which again, like I said, in the River Terrace area, as well as the Rosedale area, that those same types of community organizations don't have the bylaws, don't have the dues, are not a organization in the traditional sense. They were maybe, and on this side will be groups of communities or communities of citizens who have issues and are like issues that they will contest or talk on. So again, I think this holds to the tenets of redistricting and taking Jackson Park area or land that is not residential into the SMD. And it also keeps communities of interest, especially west where, like I said, Kingman Park and Rosedale areas are. And it keeps them compact and keeps them associated with neighborhoods and issues that are pertinent to them.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. That is my last question. At this point, I turn it over to questions from the task force relative to the principles and how they align with Commissioner Campbell's proposed map.
Could you put the map back, please?
Sure thing. Here is the map that Commissioner Campbell proposed.
Mr. Lenny, can you share the link to that Google map as well, since that's an
Sure
off district map?
And of the task force members, task force member Alcorn has a hand up.
Sure. I would just comment, thank you, Mr. Campbell, for the map. It's one that I've seen. Can you talk a little bit about how census blocks are preserved in this map as well?
Yeah, initially I went on and looked at the, when I pulled up the redistricting tool, I pulled up the map that just showed all of Ward 7 with no ANC or SMD boundaries. And it shows a block by block census, which I hand drew and hand calculated in order to draw the lines. And I tried listening to neighbors and former commissioners in the areas affected, tried to stay within the community groups and associations and civic associations, like I said, which were predominantly in the Kingman Park, Rosedale area, keeping them in their places of interest in the same SMD. Again, respecting the 15th Street border, the Benning Road border, the East Capitol Street border, and the obvious border along the river. So again, but like I said, with the jail, I thought the issues surrounding the jail, which is proposed 7802, are unique to the jail. And I think that a commissioner who would have jurisdiction over the entire area with a new or future build out taking place would not be as effective as a commissioner on the outside who was able to have a better understanding of the community issues.
Sure, thank you. And Mr. Campbell, I would add, as it relates to this ANC structure with 7 single member districts, you actually did do a really good job as it relates to the census blocks and tracks. This is the sort of Hill East census block and track. And the really the only bifurcation is one in the middle, but because the DC Council decided to draw the Ward 6 and 7 boundary up 15th Street, it was the DC Council that decided to bifurcate the census tract in the middle, but everything else does seem to align very similarly with your map.
I have a similar map, which is probably not here, where I did do totals of the census. I can make send out to everyone, but I think the lowest population I had was somewhere around 1950, and that was in the, I think 701, where all the other populations were roughly 2050. So they stayed within the 1900, 2100 values.
We're at time on questions for this map. Co-chair.
That's the last question.
Oh, we're at time.
Okay, we're out of, okay. Thank you for that map, Commissioner Campbell. On to the next map.
One moment, please. We have one labeled 7F proposed draft from Tyrell Holcomb. I don't know if Commissioner Holcomb's on here. I think it's pretty similar to what he shared the other night.
I see is something in the chat from Commissioner
Okay.
Holcomb. He says
Yep.
no need to review.
Sure thing.
We'll keep moving.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hope you're having a nice evening. Oh, yeah, down it appears there's one called 7B V2 by someone named Eric 44.
That's me.
Don't know. Oh, all right, Eric. Welcome. Did you want to review this map?
Yeah, real quick. This is just a version of 7B with the initial principles that we discussed after the first couple of roundtables, using Massachusetts Avenue as the main border and trying to maintain as much of the original 7B01 as we could, while also ignore the actual designations, but while also reincorporating the Fort Dupont neighborhood back into 7B. And to the extent that we could, I tried to, follow main corridor, main streets. So Pennsylvania Avenue, Alabama Avenue, Branch Avenue, and other main streets you'll see are kind of prevalent throughout the map. And the only reason why 7B03 is kind of squiggly is, it's our Ward 8 border. So the Grays apartment building on the lower part of Pennsylvania Avenue, closest to the river, is really where most of that population comes. So any questions, I'm available.
Okay, I will lead off with a question regarding the principles of redistricting in terms of population. I see that that says that the fundamental principle comes from constitutional doctrine, one person, one vote, but it says the task force strongly encourages to draw S&D boundaries that are population for every single member district ranging between 1900 and 2100. How does your map measure up to that principle?
I have two outliers, 7B03, I'm 31 over, and 7B06, I'm 12 over. Otherwise, everything is within.
Is that because of the way the census blocks break?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as a note for people who haven't worked on this, it's really, really hard to get that precise with the whole census block.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's why I wanted to highlight that, and that if it were possible to bring the numbers in alignment, I wanted everybody to know the map creator really probably would have done that, except the limitations of the system. We have to draw maps by hand if we intend to break a census block, and we have to have a good reason for doing it. Not to say it can't be done, but it takes more explanation and a little bit more work.
And there is a hand raised from Task Force Member Petruni.
One more question before I get to Task Force Member Petruni. Within I know there's a lot of area to cover, but again, the boundaries for civic associations, can you speak to the alignment of how they fit into your ANC boundaries?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion at the last, couple of meetings ago. So to the extent that we could, the extent that I could, the Dupont Park folks, I heard them try to incorporate as much as I could from their concerns, as well as the Fort Davis folks, trying to incorporate them and bring them, like I said, back into 7B. And again, trying to respect the natural boundaries that you see, using the main thoroughfares as the significant boundaries for the SMDs.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn the questions over to the task force to ask questions directly related to the principles of redistricting. First hand I saw up was Nisha Petruni.
Thanks, Commissioner Blair. I think you actually covered my question with your last one, but I just wanted to maybe get further confirmation from either other task force members who live in 7B or if there's any attendees just around like communities of interest, and if this feels like it aligns and keeps, you know, communities of interest covered based on community feedback. And I only ask since I represent 7D, I'm not as familiar, so I just wanted to make sure we could hear from anybody who lives in 7D to confirm like this map does preserve the communities of interest based on what the community has asked for. The answer might be yes, because I think Mr. Rogers just covered that with the Dupont discussion and aligning that, but I just wanted to reconfirm that.
Task force members, any other questions relative to this map by Mr. Rogers?
I have a question from Travis Swanson.
Take it away, Travis.
Yes, thank you. Eric, I know I was in the room when we were drawing this one, but one thing I didn't realize when this one was kind of being drafted, since seeing Justin's map of the civic associations, it looks like Fort Davis's civic association actually goes up to Ridge Road. And I know one of their main concerns was not wanting to be split between commissions. And this map does still split them between commissions because they go north of Massachusetts. And I was wondering if there's maybe an opportunity to tweak this to try and rectify that, since that was a big concern for Fort Davis, that they're currently divided between commissions. They don't want to be divided between commissions, but this map would keep them divided between commissions.
I'm definitely open to any adjustments that keeps the community as whole as we can. But from my understanding, the Fort Davis folks were somewhat happy with it. But, you know, again, this is a version, a discussion piece just to show, you know, what 7B can look like. So for sure, we can definitely readjust to try to incorporate as much as we can.
Yeah, and obviously they won't fit into one full SMD by themselves, but there might be an opportunity to at least get them in the same commission. Great, thank you.
Any other task force member questions for Mr. Eric Rogers?
Commissioner, are you ready, or co-chair, are you ready to move on?
Yep, want to make sure we gave everybody an ample amount of time to speak up on this map with great potential.
Just to give the co-chair a heads up, we reviewed 4 maps for Group A. I don't know if you want to shift gears and have voice votes, or if you want to call a couple more.
How many more maps do we have that are present for Group B?
Sadly, the mapping tool does not make it easy to answer that question.
Yeah, I realize that. You kind of have to kind of hunt around and compare your list to what we've already looked at to what looks like we haven't seen.
Yeah, actually, it looks like we may have reached the end of maps that are just marked that have 7s in them. We have another map by Corey Pullman labeled 7 ANCs for AH. Oh, that map doesn't have anything in it. It's a blank map. So
I want
to talk about there.
Okay, the maps we looked at last week, but we did not evaluate by the decision sheet. Maybe Team B could circle back and take a look at those and evaluate them based on the principles now that we're working from the sheet. But before we jump that far, you just let me know if that's a possibility for this, and in terms of how many that you have that can be evaluated by the Team B.
So that would be 3 maps we talked about last week, and that's 4 maps we've reviewed so far today.
Okay.
Maybe one thing we could do is ask if any task force members have maps that they want to talk about.
Are they in the system? Are they in the system somewhere, or they are still?
If I have, if I have a name, I could look it up really quickly. Oh, that's a practice map.
I have a question here from Commissioner Swanson, wants to know, does the principles for the single member districts document exist in a Word format? If so, would it be possible to please send it around? The PDF seems a little clunky. Not all drop-down menus are working, so it may be helpful to have the Word format. I don't have the Word format handy, but I could possibly dig it up. If my co-chair can take over and handle the voice vote that we need to do in order to correctly categorize which maps are moving forward as a whole map, which maps are going to be accepted as needing some adjustments to reconcile, and then which maps are just not going to be, which maps are going to be denied.
Hey, co-chairs, at this point, it appears that we have viewed all of the maps that have been shared.
Is that all of the maps that we previously looked at but didn't evaluate?
Yeah, that includes all the maps that we looked at last time, and then the ones we looked at this time, and then ones that people told us they didn't want to review.
Oh, okay, okay. At this time, I do want to turn over the voice vote to my co-chair to handle. He will have further instruction after we do a voice vote. We still will keep the documents that our task force members are using. It's just that we want to make the decisions in public, so those that are attending will know exactly the status of what we have viewed today. So co-chair Castone. Joel Castone, 7F07. At this point, I see somebody had a question.
Well, you made a comment.
I think before we go to vote, do we want to maybe talk about any of these maps first? I kind of feel like it might be worthwhile to sort of reflect on what we like about them, what we would think to change. So that way, when we do vote, we have some sort of context for people on what to do.
So maybe they can take notes down in the bottom section as to what they, sure, I will turn that over to Commissioner Castone and let him moderate or facilitate that conversation, and then also do the decision selections openly by voice. Thank you for this opportunity.
Considering we don't have any more maps this evening.
That's right. As far as we know, and no one else has spoken up about wanting to share something. So
right. Okay. Since we don't have any more, we already viewed 4 maps. Let's just say moving forward, because we want to be prompt and punctual and intentional in everything we do. So when we had that opportunity for the task force member to ask the questions when we was viewing those maps, let's maximize that moment then. But the fact that we don't have any more, I don't think it's a bad idea that we can actually do that. But I just want to kind of like share that, because think about when we move forward to next week, and providing we may have 10 to 15, 20 maps, and we got to get through the material, and we have to get to a decision. We may not have the same flexibility we had before us today. So So I just want to kind of flag that right there. So we can be very, I can say, very intentional. One thing we got, we took a beating in the past about the time. And so we don't want to make sure we're being very intentional with our time. The first map that we looked at was Ward Task Force. It was named Ward Task Force. Is there any task force member? I think it'd be feasible to recognize at least 2 or more task force member who has additional comments for the very first map that we looked at today. I see Tamika right there has her hand up.
Can I just see the map again? Like, okay. I feel like we saw it for 3 minutes and that was it. Thank you so much, Justin.
Just load it up.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Of course. Let me know if you want to look at a specific part of the ward too. If I could just, I have a couple comments about this map. I've been thinking a lot about what the minimum number of SMDs could be and still have a functional ANC. I think the law allows us to draw really disparate size commissions, but I think on the far end, say if you have 2 members, I don't think it would work. Or if you have like 20, I think that's too big to function. This map has some 3 and 4 SMD districts, and my sense from being a commissioner was that might be slightly small. Mm-hmm. I'm also kind of interested, I'm a 7D person, so I'm also kind of interested to hear what River Terrace folks might have to say about this map. River Terrace has always been in 7D, but I think there's been a lot of collaboration and work across the river between 7D01 and 7D04, which may justify adjusting that. But I don't know enough about that to really make it, be informed about that. And I guess for 7D, my other 7D comment is I can't support that 7D05 that doesn't connect to the rest of the ANC very well.
Thank you, Justin. Anyone else have any comments or perspective?
Hand raised from Task Force Member Brian Alcorn.
Okay, Mr. Alcorn, want to recognize you for a minute.
Thank you, Commissioner Castone. Just to comment on the 7G and 7I designations. I agree with former Commissioner Linney that as you sort of trend toward smaller ANCs, particularly collections of SMDs that may be 2 or 3, you do potentially reach some operational challenges there. That said, I do appreciate the map makers' efforts to look at the existing single member districts as they are drawn right now and try to apportion them among the various different ANCs. That's a noble effort, and I appreciate her insight there. It helped me look at things a little bit differently. But conceptually, I would support moving this map forward.
Wonderful. Okay. At this time, Mr. Linney, can you pull up, if there's no more comments, I don't see any more hands. Is there anything up there, Terrence?
No, I guess we're ready to look at ANC 7B and 7G.
I think
there's a hand that just got raised by Task Force Member Deskins, and then put back down.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if I could speak. I just wanted to just for this particular map, sorry, I'm multitasking with kids. I had particular concerns about the size of the commissions as well. Just because it seems like it would be more difficult to get participation with less. And I think if you have maybe some people's commissions have like tons of people joining the meetings all the time. But with those that don't have that kind of participation, it further limits where you can have collaboration with folks. So, but I do appreciate the effort, and I didn't make a map. So this is me being not yet, but so this is just me being given some feedback. But that was just one thing I wanted to bring up because I know we have different perspectives depending on where we live and the dynamics of our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, I think we have me.
I'm just a little curious, and correct me if this has happened before, but I'm looking at this particular map and I'm noticing a number of the S&Ds that are well over the 2100 and a number that are well under the 1900. So is there something in here that I'm missing? I'm trying to understand, like for instance, the 7H04 is 2106 and 7G is 2970. But then 1703 is only 1865. So I'm especially like with 7F04, which is 1393. So I'm lost kind of how that balances that particular requirement of the districting.
I can answer that question as the person who submitted the map. And you are correct, Mr. Campbell, there are a lot of numbers that don't fit the target range. I found it really challenging to make some of those changes in the mapping tool, so I have a separate document that I was tracking like where adjustments would need to happen if we wanted to pursue any of these different boundary lines. So I recognize that as the map shows it, this is not in line with that principle of maintaining 1900 to 2100. I had some like side notes about how we would have to actually adjust some of the numbers or move numbers into different SMDs if this general framework seemed to be something that we wanted to pursue. But I appreciate all the feedback, and I think, you know, even if we decide to not move forward with this map, which I, you know, don't have a personal opinion on, I just wanted to present the options. I think it seems like there were some good lessons to take away from questions that we should ask when we consider future maps just around how we're structuring the number of SMDs in a commission. So I appreciate all of the comments and questions and feedback.
Yeah, and I also want to remind the task force member that remember this, this is our second round evaluation, the same maps we looked at previously. So we can kind of make sure that we, in our additional comments, if there may be something that we didn't say previously, we can also put in our notes, and also want to know whether or not the drop-down boxes in the sheet that we provided, whether or not that works for you too. With that being stated, I think Mr. Alcorn, Ashley, and Stamper. We start with you, Mr. Alcorn.
Thank you for a second shot. Just wanted to third Mr. Deskin's comments. Again, on ANC size, I would observe that there are two ANCs presently, ANC 2D that has 2 members and ANC 2C that has 3 members. And just in executing sort of ANC duties generally, I've actually heard from those ANCs over time, and commissioners have described how difficult it is to both fulfill all of the 4 officer roles that ANCs are required to do, and then also have, you know, a small number of commissioners carrying out the work on behalf of their communities. So a 2-member ANC obviously would be a challenge for those commissioners who were elected to those seats eventually. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Ruff?
Okay, I'm just looking at 7F01 by itself. It seems like on this map, 7F01 is kind of like becoming a little bit smaller than what it already is. And it's not like we don't have the population over here in 701. We do. It just seems like we're kind of being phased out in it. So I just kind of wanted to point that out.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Stamper?
Hello, hi, how are you? I was looking at the map and I don't see that it makes any sense to have a commission with only 5 commissioners or even 3. Like people already said, you need at least 4 officers. Then you need quorum. You need somebody sick, somebody's not going to be there. Also, looking at all the economic development that 7F has waited to happen over the course of the last, 10, 15 years, why create a whole nother commission and give those development projects to a whole new commission? I don't think that's fair. just me personally, looking at how you guys are doing this map, creating like 7A, G, and all this like small little commissions, to me, that doesn't make sense. It dilutes the voting power in that area. And to me, you would kind of need to shore it up. I do believe 701 should not necessarily shrink. And that's it for right now. I guess my biggest concern, I don't think small commissions are smart. I feel like you're selling yourself short and you're going to work even harder, not smarter. That was the first thing that popped in my head. And then the whole voting power and getting out. I can walk all of Deanwood. I don't understand what saying something about walking and not being able to, like, I can literally walk all of Deanwood on foot. I could drive it, I could walk it, I could bike it, and if I felt like it, I could skip it. Also, the economic development that's happening and coming to 7F, it should stay with 7F. It shouldn't go to a whole new commission. The generational wealth that we've been waiting on should be the priority there. We shouldn't give that to somebody else to do. We need to take that and handle it and keep it moving and make sure it happens. Because if it doesn't, then we're going to be sitting here 10 years from now trying to do this whole thing again. And maybe, it could be our cousins or uncles or whoever, but then we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. And I don't want that to be the case here for 7F, especially for 7C. I know I've shared with you guys the desire, how I've testified on behalf of the Deanwood Citizens Association. I've shared it with my working group. Please read it. I know I put it in the chat. You're probably like, oh, this chick keeps putting the same thing in the chat over and over. That's what I'm focused on. That's what I want. And it's literally the same thing over and over. So I'm gonna keep repeating the same thing. But I just dropped my kid off. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Patricia. Mr. Justin, can we go to the next map, please?
Sure thing. Next map is ANC 7B and 7G. A second to drop that in there. And if everyone remembers, this is the one that had changes to 7B and then changes to 7G. Mm-hmm. or created a 7G ANC west of the river.
Mm-hmm. At this moment, I want to recognize any task force member who have additional comment about this particular map.
Raise my hand. I seem to have misplaced where I did that, can do that at, but I was going to say, I think out of the two west of the river sets of west of the river SMD maps, I think the other one is probably more thought out. And I can't speak to 7B since I just don't know that area well enough, but this one seems like it needs to cook a little more.
Hmm. Certainly see if any hands raised. Mr. Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Castle, sorry. Mm-hmm. I like what's happening in the 7B area. I mean, I see what they are attempting to do, but the continuity and contiguous issues are not addressed when you look at how 7B04 and 7B02 are separated. And if I recall, in the redistricting intent, it's just asking those areas to be contiguous, not separate. And I think that would be the problem with this particular map, as well as I don't know, and again, I can't speak to a whole lot of it because I don't know the population, but if the population here is 7B01, that would just be one sitting commissioner. Well, yeah, it would be, but I'm trying to, I guess the color, that's the color degradation, that's what that is. I guess my only complaint would, or my only concern would be, like I said, the separation of 7B02 versus 7B04. Being kind of like an island away from the rest of the proposed area. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. No other task force member want to provide additional comments about this particular map? Ms. Laney, can we go to the next map, please?
Map is the 7A latest updated map.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Commissioner Campbell, I see that this one is slightly different than the one that we have in the Google map. Which is the Google map the most up-to-date one?
The Google map would be the most up-to-date one. Again, like I said, because it shows the separation of the proposed DC jail and the incorporation of the rest of the landmass of Reservation 13 into the proposed 7803, I believe it is, yes. So there is an accompanying street demarcation that basically outlines the streets where they are connected, how far they go, like from east to west, north to south. I can send that around as a separate cover. And I think, Mr. Lynn, you pointed out there was maybe one or two places in the map where those street names weren't quite, like maybe a block off, but I'm happy to go back and look at that again. Like I said, I used the mapping, I used the redistricting map of Ward 7 totality with no SMDs or ANC boundaries, and that's what gave me the census tracts for those various areas, updating with 2020 census. So I think that that would address, and I did not try to demarcate anything across the river or outside the area that I'm familiar with. So I would suggest this would be just one on the merits of that particular area and incorporate it into another map.
Mr. Cam, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you square the concerns that Patricia gave about generational wealth and the hard work that was done in 7F, the fear of that possibly being lost? Well,
Are we talking about the area that's Reservation 13?
Yes.
That area initially was part of 6B10, which was my former SMD when I was a commissioner. And so the totality of Reservation 13 was 6B10 with the exception of the jail, which was 6B11, non-voting member of an 11-member ANC at that time for 6B. It wasn't until the 2010 census that that area was annexed when Councilwoman Alexander wanted to annex the area up to 17th Street. And that was defeated when she ended, at that time, the homeless shelter and the jail were open, which was roughly 5,000 or slightly more residents, which at the time was moved into Ward 7. And so that addressed the population issue. But again, like I said, Reservation 13, from the time the hospital closed in 2003, was in 6B. It was part of my SMD, and I represented those few residents who were there. And even beyond that point, when all of the area, including St. Coletta's, which is a 11-month school, was moved into, I continued to work with the CEO of the school then. So there are no residents in that particular facility either, in case anyone was questioning that. But the economic development or the zoning and all were set down while I was a commissioner 6B because there was no zoning for Reservation 13. Right, and it was in our SMD and our ANC up until that time, and there was a whole site plan which was under development, which was initially one that was passed by 6B, and nothing over 4 story was proposed to be built on that entire property. It was a 10-year project that should have been completed in 2014. But unfortunately, the market tanked in 2008, which prevented that, along with some other concessions that were not acknowledged or not followed through on, which is why I pulled out that development. So again, all the groundwork was laid by 6B. And to speak on one of the issues, sir, when we were attempting to have comments when there was additional stuff going on with Reservation 13, we were told to stay the hell out of it. I don't propose having the same attitude at the areas we adjusted. I would like to see a community group working together to address those issues and also so that it doesn't feel like it is all one-sided, that it also be something that a separate or a equal property in the further quote-unquote proper of 7F would be have that same commission made up of community members to address those issues.
Thank you. Are there any? Yes, Tamika, I see you.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Bond.
No, I was just gonna let Co-Chair Castone know that you had a question, as well as there is a member of the public. I believe that it is ANC Commissioner Tyrell Holcomb has his hand raised, and I believe ANC Commissioner Allison Horn had her hand raised as well, but she lowered it. So just wanted to let you know that you have two hands raised in addition to Task Force Member Tamika Bowden.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bond. Can I hear from Tamika, Task Force Member first?
Yes, thank you for this map, Commissioner Francis. Could you speak a little bit about the creation of it in terms of Principle 2 around the minority voting power? What was your thinking about creating an SMD that would creating SMDs of this, going right up to that 2000 number, but ensuring that there was an additional SMD that went specifically west?
Talk about the one proposed that says 7A02, because it incorporates part of the residential area and all of Reservation 13. But that 2386 is the number we got from OP, speaking about what's in DC jail. And obviously, we would have no control over the population of the jail and CISOs and the Harriet Tubman shelter, I believe, is incorporated.
I'm speaking to the entire, the new 7A in general, because all of these particular SMDs are going right to that 2000 number.
Oh,
and when I look at previous maps, yeah, can you just speak about what was your thinking there?
I got
and how you took consideration around the minority voting power?
Well, granted, I mean, I took the map and I took it from the census data that was on the Ward 7 map for the redistricting. And believe me, I worked around the various boundaries. I tried to be cognizant of the community organizations, like I said, with Kingman Park and Rosedale. I spoke to the sitting commissioners over there, as well as a few residents, and asked them what were their concerns. So I tried to hear those, speaking to residents in 6A, the 6A078 area, trying to figure out, and again, talking to my neighbors on this side of Independence East Capitol Street, however, and again, pulling on historic knowledge as to how Reservation 13 was divided and where boundaries of it were. So I tried to utilize all of that information and stay within. And believe me, it was not an easy task. I spent 3 days bunking around with the numbers trying to get them. And the only one that actually came up to the 2100 threshold was a proposed 7804. But it was, again, and Parkland is in every map in the city, or any of those areas that's so large, unoccupied or non-residential areas are contiguous to the residential or SMDs that are adjacent next to them or part of them, which is why I again incorporated the area around the RFK, even though it is not under our purview or responsibility in the area of 7A02, which is the Reservation 13 area, which is now DC property. Does that answer your question?
It gives me some insight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Chair Castone, who would you like to recognize next? Again, you have ANC Commissioners Tyrell Holcomb, Allison Horn, and Dorothy Douglas.
Yes, please, in that order. Thank
you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Holcomb, you have the floor.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
You have to forgive me. Tyrell had to go to a tenant meeting. I am the community consultant for 7F. I just wanted to say, I feel some type of way hearing that people from Ward 6 felt like they were not included in the redevelopment of the Hill East when DemPed put out the RFP. We had several meetings with 6B. Nobody ever told them to kick rocks or that they couldn't be involved. And I just wanted to correct that for the record. I was involved in those meetings, and I know that that was not the case. Tyrell and the entire commission was collaborative with other members of the community and other ANC commissions. And I just really took umbrage to what was said.
I respect you. I respect what you have to say, sir, but I can tell you what I experienced firsthand. So it may not have been in a public forum per se, but I can tell you what I was told point blank, and I find no need to lie or prevaricate on the issue. But this isn't the forum, and I'm not going to argue about that, but I just need to have that to say.
All right, next we have ANC Commissioner Allison Horn.
Yes, thank you. I just had one very kind of small nitpicky thing here. I know on the mapping tool that the district that's in orange here, that's 7A02, is not able to be split because it's one, like it's its own census block. So the tool itself won't let you split it. There was a Google map that did split it. And one sort of suggestion I would have with respect to that is that you can see here that little blue district at the bottom has kind of a zigzaggy line. I think the intention of that I support, which is to sort of keep the, make sure that that district does always represent the voices of DC's incarcerated residents by including the residents of the jail. I would just note that in the mayor's budget that was sort of released over the last couple of days, that there was a suggestion that there would be a new CTF annex built over the next 10 years, which would probably be kind of on the back end here in a portion that's still in orange. So one suggestion that I had would be to sort of continue the Massachusetts Avenue line that you see along the top here, all the way down to the river, if we were to choose an option like this, to make sure that the population of any new jail that's built within the next 10 years would be included in it as well. And that's really all I had to add. Thanks.
Can I address that?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Horn, I appreciate that. And I did see that information today, but we were tasked with drawing boundary lines and SMD line, proposed SMD lines with the 2020 census. And it did not allow for any consideration of future development. On that note, I would not have any objection to the line extending down to the so-called service road, the southwest portion of it. But again, this was just in trying to address the tenets of what we were tasked with and how we decide where the boundaries are going to go.
Thank you. Who was the next person? Was it Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, give me 1 second. Let me get her on. Commissioner Douglas, you have the floor.
Yes, how's everybody doing, and blessing day to everybody. I just wanted to see the map for 7003 because I have concerns in reference to that. And also, while he's searching that, Justin Lindsay, glad to see you as always here. I see you got a new person working with you, but I'm just wondering, does she have any experience or expertise in helping forming this map? I know a lot of you all don't all have the training. And that's one of my concerns that residents are asking. And observing the map and been on for a while, it appears that 7D, I'm trying to get 7003, but I'm seeing 7004. So can you get me to that area, please?
Commissioner,
yes, ma'am.
Are you referring to the map that I talked about on Monday, or?
No, I think she's referring to the map that they're seeing right now. And
okay.
Just to be clear, I did not, this is superimposed over that existing map prior to this. So everything east of where I am, I did not touch. So I acknowledge that those numbers are there, but that was something that at the time I couldn't change those numbers. So it was, my sole focus was on the ANC west of the river. So I did not, those numbers for 7D and 7F and 7C, I did not change those. Okay,
so what you're saying when you say not change, those numbers got to be a little bit more.
No, what I'm saying is that when I had the original map, I didn't change those numbers because I don't know, I don't have any knowledge of where the boundaries or SMDs of ANC's east of the river. So the only thing that I changed was the proposed ANC west of the river. All the other, everything you see across the river, the entire Ward 7 map, I did not focus on and I did not change.
Okay, now who am I speaking? Is this Justin, who am I speaking with?
No, man, you're speaking with Francis Campbell.
Oh, how you doing, Mr. Campbell? I just want, I said, I just want to make sure who I was here.
Yeah,
Was
I just want to make sure
Douglas,
everybody's
I'm
clear
here
that
too.
I did not
and I'm jumping
change
on,
the
and I'm
number.
jumping on Justin. I said, Justin, because you.
No, I created the map, but what I should have done in the creation of the map showing the ANC east of the river, I should have blanked out everything west of the river. And so that is my fault. Please don't anyone hold Mr. Leany at fault for this. This was solely my fault. So if you're concentrating, that's why I said the only thing that I would consider in making the map is just you consider everything east of the river and had it added in part to an area or a map of someone who knows those areas better than I do, because I have no expertise southwest, east of the river, other than the sister and brother who happen to live in what I call the.
So the bottom line, I want to go through long change because I got to jump off too. I got 100 meetings to go to. So
Yeah.
everything stays the same, what you're saying, Mr. Campbell, for 7003 and 2. Am I correct?
No, it wouldn't. It would change because I don't know those numbers. Like I said, I didn't mess with any of that. 7D.
So if you all have not changed those numbers, and now I'm just seeing it now. So what would be those numbers change? That's what I'm saying to you all, and you all gonna vote tonight.
No,
So
they would change with someone else who has taken that area that you see of 7D and 7F, like 7F06, where you see the 2443 and 7D03 or 2437. So another commissioner or another map maker who is familiar with that area would change that, because I didn't, because I don't know what those areas are. And I don't know where the community groups, the places of interest, the street grid, even though I can see it, I don't know it. I'm not familiar with it. So I didn't deign to try to change any of that portion.
I appreciate that, Mr. Campbell. That's why I was addressing it to Mr. Justin Lindsay, Justin Lennon. So he could be clarification with that. So we were just saying that we'll make sure, because of the new development that's coming in there, and that's why I brought it up, I think a couple weeks ago, in reference to the population, because the mayor said not only twice and also whatnot, we only have 188 people that's there. So the other that he said from the census is 300 or whatever the case may be, where we're not, because she made it clear there's only 188 and 166 going to probably be coming back to that. So that's why I wanted to be some clarification, because it's in writing. I think I sent Justin Lynn that information. So they need to check, because the people are not there, the bodies are not there. Only what the mayor has said and also what the housing has said. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarification on that. And also I'm having a meeting, Justin, I hope you got the information about the meeting for the community to speak, which is March the 26th at 10:30 on Zoom. So I'd like to have you be on there, and also task force Mr. Wendell as well. So please check your email, because I did send that out, matter of fact, Monday. And want to make sure that, because this community wants to know what's going on, and they want to keep what they have with here. And our population is not as big as you all, he suggested. The mayor clarified that a week ago, and this week she sent the documentation to back it up.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Campbell.
Answer the questions.
Yeah, I want a task force member. I want to make sure that we are intentional. We have an additional map we want to look at. I think we may have probably went over the time on this map right here. You did a wonderful job, Mr. Campbell. You explained yourself very fluently. Can we please recognize Mr. Brian Icorn, and then we get on to our next map. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Castone, and thanks, Mr. Campbell. Just going back to the Google map actually here. Great, thank you. Thanks to Ms. Horn for her remarks sort of on the future potential expansion by DC Corrections on Reservation 13. Among the community members, as well as the 7F experts on that parcel, would the infill logically go in the sort of southeastern portion? So if one were to extend a notional Massachusetts Avenue to the service road, that would sort of capture future development, but not future population there?
I'm sorry, was your question directed to me?
to anybody with the knowledge. So it was observed earlier that DC Corrections may be adding an annex to the jail facility. And I'm just asking sort of where that is logically going to go. Would that be sort of south of a notional extended Massachusetts Avenue?
Brian, if I can interrupt, I would tend to believe that would be the only area, considering its proximity to Congressional Cemetery, that there'd be a limited area that it could push back. But again, that's not to say that they couldn't take down the Tubman shelter, and once the Ethel was completed, and that there would be sufficient area to the east of the existing facility there where they could build that proposed annex. That would make the most sense, because if I recall, Sosa is also in the building that they renovated, but they have a long-term agreement with the district, so they would remain, and there's no other physical facilities back there other than the land that's owned by Watson and Pepco. So I see that there's potential, in which case then it would make more sense to extend that line down.
But at this point, that information is not known to the community or to 7F.
No, it's not. And again, it's only because it was a proposal. But again, keeping in mind that we're restricted by the tenets of redistricting to only consider the 2020 issues and not to project on this or any other maps potential development in the future.
Exactly.
And to that point,
Castone,
yes.
I'm sorry, I just trying to be mindful of your own timetable. It is 6:48, and I know that there are a couple of your task force members that have to drop at 7. So if there are any decision making that needs to be done,
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know it's 10 minutes to 7.
Thank you for that reminder. I would like to consider the fact that in our first round this evening, we already looked at the maps that we're doing. This is the second additional second jab at the same maps that we looked at previously. With that being stated, looking at this final map that we already viewed, I would like to yield the floor to a task force member to share specifically within a minute or so their comments as relates to this map, and then we can go straight into our voting. Looking down, are there any hands raised?
I see one hand, and that is task force member Leany.
Yes, sir, Ms. Neely.
Since this will probably be our last chance to talk before we go into decision-making mode, I don't have any comments on this map since I don't think I'm qualified to speak to 7B's boundaries. My recommendation tonight is that we don't accept any maps in whole, and that we would accept maps that we're in favor of in partiality, because none of these maps have been designed to accommodate the whole ward. So an approach we may want to do is to accept the parts of the maps in the spirit that they're presented, and then sort of assemble the maps sort of in our next step.
Thank you. At this moment, we want to allow each task member to vote as he or she feels fit. That would be to accept the map as whole, partial, or declining. If I'm correct, what I understood, we all have to say so verbally. Am I correct, Chief of Staff Bunn?
Yes, and I believe, yes, that would be helpful for the record that we are recording. But I also believe that Co-Chair Blair developed a form for you all to fill out. So.
Yeah, we did a form, but the clarity was that whether or not the submission of the form is sufficient, or do we have to do so publicly in this form now?
Out publicly in this form, so that the public, and it's on record, whatever decision making at this juncture is being made.
Wonderful, thank you. With that being stated, I will go down the line from the names that are here on Group A, and we'll start with, I will start with the first map, which was Ward Task Force. The name was, we can either say number 1, or the name of it was Ward 7 Task Force. With that being stated, I will go to Mr. and I would just ask, we can simply state whole, accepted in whole, a W, partial, or the D for decline. So that's the only thing we want, whole, partial, decline. And I will start with you, Mr. Francis Campbell. Is your vote whole, partial, decline for the first map?
Decline.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Swanson, whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Mr. Rogers, whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Same for Mr. Madeline. Whole, partial, decline.
Sorry, were you saying my name?
Yes, sir. Madeline.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No worries. Decline.
I decline. It's Commissioner Blair. I think she had a jump. Wonderful. Melissa Fries. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline, please.
Okay. Mr. Leany. Whole, partial, decline. Decline. Okay. Lee Wilson. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Thank you. Ms. Ashley Ruff. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Okay. And Ms. Tomika. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Thank you. Let's move forward to our second map this evening. Pardon, beg your pardon?
I didn't get to vote.
Well, we was looking at group A. However, I can bring this to the task force, just the group A.
No problem. Thank you. We'll keep moving. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. For the second map was 7B and 7G. I'll start coming up. Ms. Tamika. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Ashley Ruff. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Mr. Wilson. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Mr. Leany. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Ms. Freeze. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Mr. Deskin. Whole, partial, decline.
You were on mute, Mandela.
That is not correct. Decline.
Decline. All right. Mr. Rogers. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Mr. Swanson. Whole, partial, decline.
Partial.
Okay. And Ms. Campbell. Whole, partial, decline.
Decline.
Oh, Mr. Campbell, sorry. All right, our third map this evening was titled 7A Latest Update.
I have a question. Are you going to allow me to vote at all?
Oh, better don't.
Wait a minute, Mr.
Wait a minute. You are in.
Because Eric.
No, Ms. Stamper. Sorry, Ms. Stamper. We had you in Group B. And so we really wanted Group A feedback.
I guess, could I ask, Co-Chair, since we all reviewed the maps together and we weren't in breakout rooms, maybe if you could clarify the objective of only letting half of the task force members vote on certain maps, or if it is possible for all of us to vote. I know we're split into groups, but.
That makes sense to me. Did the task force agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, task force.
Yeah, I would like for all of us to vote if we all looked at them.
Wonderful. That was my initial thought, but I was sticking to the script that we had agreed upon, but nonetheless, please. So now I'm gonna go to Ms. Dean. For the first map, Ms. Dean.
I decline both maps.
Decline both maps. Thank you.
Well, that's quick.
All right. And Patricia, what do you say? Both maps or no?
Decline.
Whole, partial, decline.
Decline both maps, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I will also decline both maps, Co-Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else that was a part of the other group that's not here?
Yes, sir.
Decline both maps.
Caprice, Captain, do you remember the first two? What do you vote? Whole, partial, decline?
Decline.
For the
both.
Both. Okay, thank you.
And Chairperson Field, task member Felder here. I decline both maps as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fielder.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now everyone is, I'll just come down a list. Instead, I was saying whole, partial, decline. We know what it is. I'll just call the name out. Are we good on the record keeping, Mr. Leamy?
Yes, I've been jotting these down as we're doing this. So what I have, just to make
You
sure.
sound like a robot.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Justin.
All right. So what
Don't worry about it. You record this, thumbs up. You got it? All right, that's all we need to hear. Thank you. All right, move right along. Number 3, 7A ladies. The name was 7A, the third one. And I'll come down with Mr. Campbell. Hold, partial, decline.
Partial.
Mr. Swanson.
Partial.
Mr. Rogers.
Partial.
Mandela. Hold, partial, decline.
Sorry, partial.
Ms. Freeze.
Partial.
Mr. Laney.
Partial.
Mr. Wilson.
Decline.
Ms. Ashley.
Decline.
Ms. Bowden.
Decline.
Mr. Alcorn. Oh, because he was off the last one too. Dr. Dean.
Decline.
Mr. Richmond. He was not last day, not last time either.
He's in transit. He's
Okay,
not
yeah.
available.
Okay. Patricia.
Decline.
Mr. Felder.
Abstain.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, my bad. Decline. I'm sorry. My bad, decline.
All right.
I was multitasking.
Yeah, no problem. Ms. Patruni.
Decline.
Mr. O'Keefe and I did tonight. At least not now. Ms. Casson, what are you saying?
Decline.
Thank you. I got to put mine out there because now I'm in Group B too. I'm doing DDP.
Oh, DD partial. Okay.
Okay, the last one is the name of it 7BV2. Oh, okay. I'll start from the bottom. It was P for me. Ms. Casson, what would you?
Decline.
Patruni, what you have?
Partial.
Mr. Felder.
Partial.
Okay, Patricia.
Partial.
Okay. Dr. Dean.
Decline.
Okay. Alcorn's gone. Tamika, what you have?
Decline.
Okay. Ms. Ruff.
Decline.
Mr. Wilson.
Decline.
Justin.
Partial.
Okay. Melissa.
Decline.
Mandela, what you have?
I love how you changed the names. You did good that time.
I'm
Decline.
working. I'm getting my
good.
tongue back,
Decline.
man. The city back.
Did that. Okay.
Yeah. You got a P or D or hold?
Oh, decline.
Decline. Gotcha. Eric Rogers.
Partial.
Mr. Swanson.
Decline.
And Mr. Campbell.
Partial.
Great. Whew. I think we made it through it, right? No one is bleeding, no black eyes, nothing like that. We made it through it. I would say this here in closing. This has been probably the most challenging situation that I've done thus far. I've been in a phone call with co-chair Blair at least at least 6 hours, like something like 2 hours straight. I mean, we've been going in, you know, and so the great work we do, I know you all have been talking and email threads and things of nature that like this. There's know that we doing what's good for the people. You know, we have a non-objective mentality, at least that's my mentality. It's like what's best based on your understanding. No one can judge your understanding. No one should be attacked for their understanding, their perspective, because it's your perspective. And so with that being stated, you know, I just want to say that it's a delight working with you all. I know we have our next meeting coming Monday, and I will wear the responsibility for the Saturday misunderstanding. I know that Chief of Staff Sheeta Bond said that we couldn't come together. They couldn't come together, but we can have a discussion. I thought some members want to have a discussion, but forget about that. That was something in the thread when we had put the out and those who wanted to speak about Saturday. But we know we have Monday and we have Wednesday, and the next thing we want to do is we want to talk about volunteers for the report itself. But right now we got to get through these maps. That's the hard part, and I think we got it done tonight. So with that being stated, I know the moms in the building, the fathers in the building, everyone, we did a good job. I want to let you all go. Have a wonderful evening.
Coach Castone, before you adjourn the meeting, I think you might want to reiterate for the public that is on the deadline by which they have to submit maps for your consideration. We haven't had a chance to put it out there in our newsletter, so you might want to announce that tonight, and we will, of course, help to promote that for you. But I think the public should know what their deadline is.
Yes, well, we have 2 more public sessions, which would be, I don't know the dates now before me.
I believe your next working session is Monday, the 21st, and I believe you all scheduled the additional one for the 23rd, but we'll put them out in the council members newsletter. But I think you all came up with a deadline by which the public can submit additional maps. I believe that was this Saturday, the 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I believe you are correct.
And Task Force Member Tamika, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the date, the 19th.
I can't remember if it's at 5. We gave a time. Does anybody remember what time?
I think it was 6.
6 o'clock?
It was 6.
Okay. So we'll put that in our newsletter, but I just wanted you to announce it to the public that was attending as well.
Thank you for that reminder right there. We definitely want to let the public know that the deadline is the 19th at 6 p.m. to make your submission so we can evaluate your maps. And once again, kudos to all the task force members. We did a good job. So yeah, if that's nothing else been left, I would like to conclude the meeting.
Yes, and then one additional thing for the public that's listening, to make it easy for the task force, please name your map in the Esri system something identifiable to the task force so that they can easily reference it at the next meeting. But that's all I got, Co-Chair Castone.
Wonderful. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.